The radical. Fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody. Welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Sunday, April 13th. And the world is ever exciting with Trump in the White House. You saw on Friday evening, Trump has basically rescinded tariffs on electronics, chips, computers, phones. Of course, this is all part of the grand 5, 7, 8, 9, 12D strategy. All his cronies were saying on TV this morning. There was also always the intention. They've got a special plan for electronics, and has nothing to do with cronyism, Apple, his relationship with. Anyway, no, none of that. Of course, Trump knows exactly what he's doing. He's a genius. He's the great negotiator. He is the art of the deal. He's the greatest negotiator in all of human history. Nobody has ever negotiated a deal better than Donald Trump. Anyway, so we're going to evaluate that. We're going to examine that claim of Trump being a great negotiator. This show is being sponsored by an anonymous supporter, but basically asked me to do a show about how Trump is indeed the worst negotiator in, I don't know, all of human history, maybe. That's a little bit, because I don't know all the negotiators. But he's really, 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 really bad, is the point. So we're going to go through some of the negotiations that Trump has been involved in over the years and evaluate whether he is a great negotiator or not, or is he indeed the worst negotiator ever, at least the worst negotiator ever as president of the United States. So that is the topic today. Happy to take your questions. Feel free to jump in with questions and comments and suggestions on the Super Chat. Super Chat is open. We have our usual goal aligned with this. We will go as long as you guys have questions. We will go at it. So ask away at the questions. We're going to cover a lot of topics. We'll cover the trade, obviously, the tariffs, but we'll also cover Ukraine, Russia, China, and North Korea. You remember North Korea? Remember North Korea? Gaza, Iran. Oh, Iran. Yeah, they met yesterday. Yesterday, they started negotiating with Iran. So a lot to cover, and all, I think, consistent with the same conclusion. Trump being the worst negotiator ever. All right. So I think we should start with, now with the most recent. I mean, we had Liberation Day. Wasn't that long ago? It seems like decades ago, but it's just a few days ago. A week and a half ago, we had Liberation Day, and basically Trump imposed these complex, well, not complex, it turns out, simple formula, but varied so-called reciprocal, turned out not really reciprocal. Anyway, we've talked about all that. Tariffs on everybody, on every country in the world. He also imposed a 10% minimum tariff. So there's a minimum tariff on every country in the world. So that is what was determined on Liberation Day. And Trump was very excited, and this would be achieve basically all his goals. It was going to dramatically raise revenue for the United States. It was going to balance the trade deficit, so it was going to increase export, decrease imports, and together with all of that, it was going to bring manufacturing back to the United States. Now, I've talked plenty about how all those three contradict each other and they don't work together, but it doesn't matter. That was the story we were told. And of course, we were told this was also a basis for negotiating the greatest, biggest, most humongous, amazing deal, trade deal ever. Almost immediately, first of all, we got some tariffs in response, primarily from China. China ramped up its tariffs. Since then, Trump has gone after China. We'll get into more detail about the China thing in a minute, but basically that's been going on. But as we know, stock market plummeted, the dollar plummeted, interest rates shot up. Somebody out there was dumping U.S. government bonds, and interest rates, particularly long-term 30-year and 10-year, shot up. And so a few days later, Trump rescinded the so-called reciprocal part of the tariffs and kept the 10%. Now, notice that it took 5 days for him to go from, I quote, his social media, not mine, not spokesman, his social media, quote, "My policies will never change," all cap, which means he's serious. And yet 5 days later, they changed. You know, he told Americans, be cool, don't worry, everything's fine. And then he caved. We will win, hang tough, it won't be easy. And then he caved. What did he get in return? The great negotiator, right? He made a move, tough move, strong move, very aggressive move. And then what did he get in return before he caved? Nothing. Nothing. He kept saying, sometimes you have to take the medicine to fix something. Pain is okay. Yeah, hang tough. Be tough. We're going to get through this. This is good. He couldn't survive 5 days, the great negotiator. Now, the claim, of course, is 75 countries are groveling on their knees, begging for a deal. Really? Are they? Do we know this? What kind of deal? Trump people have made clear that the 10% tariff, they're not going to reduce that. That's not going anywhere. That's going to stay at 10%. So certainly it's not going to be a deal to go to zero tariffs and free trade. He never wanted that. So what does he want? Nobody really knows. Increase exports, decrease imports. But nobody really knows. 75 deals. Actually, I saw a headline. There's a story out there. 90 deals in 90 days. Yeah. Trump trade team chases 90 deals in 90 days. Yeah, good luck with that. Likelihood of that happening is pretty close to zero. I mean, 1, 2, 3 deals would be interesting. And even that, are they good deals? Are they going to be good deals? And I take good deals. I'm not saying this is Trump's idea of a good deal. I take good deals as deals driving us towards free trade, zero tariffs on both sides. But Trump raised all Americans' taxes by 10%, at least not by 10% on the stuff you buy from foreign countries. And he's not going down from 10%. So I don't see how a deal can even reach free trade level, how it can be successful. Will such deals increase American exports and decrease American imports? Very unlikely. Very unlikely. But we'll be watching. We'll be watching. But so the tariff strategy's already been one big bust. But you know, you can hold out. I know many of you want to hold out. You have hope, right? So we will see what happens in the next few weeks with the 75 countries that are begging, groveling, kissing the ring, demanding a great deal. I think they'll discover that there is no such thing as a deal with Donald Trump that is great. And anyway, and this should be kind of a theme, right? This should be one of the ideas here that we're going to talk about is, why would anybody cut a deal with Donald Trump when he reneges on them like that? Think NAFTA 2.0. Think the trade deal he negotiated in his first term. Mexico and Canada called it at the time the greatest deal ever. Greatest trade deal ever. A huge, humongous improvement over NAFTA. Signed it. Big ceremony. Core. Got a deal done. What does he do? First thing, pretty much, in his second term, renege on it. Raise tax, raise tariffs, both Canada and Mexico. Find an excuse. Why would anybody trust a deal Donald Trump signs? Can't imagine. Can't imagine. All right. So let's I want to review some of the history of Donald Trump vis-a-vis deal making and see if we can come to some conclusions. I also want to examine the question, I think, at the root of this is, why can't he cut a deal? Why there's a sense in which, it's just not possible for Trump to cut a good deal. He can't, he's a bad deal maker because of something very fundamental about him, his character, his goals, his thinking. And I want to get to that ultimately. So let's review, we can review a few things. Let's see, where should we start? Yeah, let's start. We'll get to China later. Let's start with North Korea. Remember North Korea? Remember North Korea? During Trump's first term, Trump was very, he started out with North Korea as a real tough guy. Remember that rocket ban? He called him rocket ban. He was going to crush him. He was going to devastate him because North Korea was threatening the United States with launch of ballistic missiles and nuclear tipped. Nobody ever thought they'd actually do it, but they were threatening. And Donald Trump started out by basically going after the guy, putting him down, really being aggressive. He threatened fire and fury like the world has never seen. That sounds like what he said about Gaza. It sounds like what he said about Iran. We've yet to see any fire and fury. Yet to see any fire and fury anywhere. Anyway, Kim attacked Trump. Trump attacked Kim. They went back and forth. Trump was pretty strident. I mean, there was real, I guess there was real some fear that something would happen. And then at some point, as, this tough guy game is going on, Kim Jong-un, the brutal dictator of North Korea, I want to remind you all that we're talking about a brutal dictator. We're talking about a monster. We're talking about a person responsible for the deaths of millions of his own people. Millions of his own people. Anyway, this tough talk actually got results. Kim Jong-un declared victory, that he had subdued the Americans. He proclaimed his nuclear forces, have done everything they needed to do. He had the weapons he wanted. And he was shifting attention to diplomacy. Notice, it was his initiative. He talked about the nuclear button on his desk, but he started, softening his stance. For example, he sent his sister to the 2018 Winter Olympics in Seoul, South Korea, the first time anybody from their family has gone to South Korea. And this was clearly viewed as a moderating his force. And at that point, he invited Donald Trump to meet him as soon as possible. An important point here needs to be made. during this period, the final years of the Obama administration, the first couple of years of the Trump administration, Kim's relationship with China were not good. And even with Russia, were not good. China didn't like his saber-rattling around his nuclear capabilities. I mean, at the end of the day, they know that those nuclear capabilities draw a threat to them. And plus, they don't want to get in the middle of some, a conflict between the United States and North Korea. China has its own strategic objectives, not objections, objectives, right? So Kim's relationship with China was no good, not very good. Russia, the same way. Russia did not have a good relationship with the North Korea at this point. North Korea was isolated. It was isolated internationally. The embargo on trade wasn't perfect. China was cheating a little bit, and suddenly Iran and others were cheating. But it was working, and Trump's tough stance vis-a-vis Kim was working, and he felt cornered. And at the end of the day, Kim, like most communist authoritarians, didn't want to press the button and launch missiles because he knew what would happen to him if he did. So he was cornered. Toughness works if it's consistent and acted upon. So Kim changed strategies. He offered Trump to meet. He invited Trump to come to Singapore and meet with him. And Trump he can't resist. Trump just jumped at the opportunity. This is in 2018, June of 2018. Donald Trump went to Singapore, met with Kim. You've got photos of the two with the North Korean flag and the American flag. I mean, no North Korean leader in the past had achieved such a feat of getting a photo up with the American president. This was huge. And almost immediately after this, Kim is invited to Beijing. He's invited to Vladivostok to meet with Putin, to Beijing to meet with Xi. This is a huge PR coup for the brutal dictator of North Korea. What did the United States get out of it? Nothing. Nothing. Kim, Trump basically legitimized the dictator, played directly into the dictator's domestic agenda, which was, enforcing his legitimacy or trying to secure his legitimacy. Kim didn't stop developing nuclear weapons, didn't stop developing ballistic missiles. But after Singapore, the United States and North Korea agreed to negotiate a deal. A deal, yeah. Out of the deal, Trump is a great negotiator. So even though Trump the summit was good enough for him, he got the photo up, he got the attention, he got to say that he met the leader of North Korea, nothing happened. He loved the attention. Kim got everything he wanted, which is prestige. Trump got everything he wanted, which is attention. But in terms of a deal to make America great again, to secure America and to make America safer, ultimately the deal was supposed to be for North Korea to get rid of its nuclear weapons. That was the deal. All sanctions eliminated, the United States maybe even leaving South Korea, and North Korea dismantling its nuclear facilities, all of them. But none of that happened. Indeed, what Kim took away from the meeting is that his strategy had worked. That is, if you develop nuclear weapons, you get attention, you get respect, people take you seriously, they treat you well. That's what Trump achieved. Bolstering the confidence, bolstering the legitimacy of a brutal dictator of North Korea. I mean, there are photos of Trump really listening attentively to what Kim is saying, cheering crowds. I think there's even a picture of Trump waving a little communist flag that one of the kids has there. Kim and Trump met, I think, 2 more times with no substance, nothing being offered. They exchanged lots of love letters. There was a real bromance going on. Lots of love letters, which I think Trump cherishes, because what did Kim do? He lavished praise on Trump, which is really what Trump wants and what Trump relishes. But the reality is that nothing happened. No deal was ever cut. And as soon as they got to any kind of details, like in Hanoi, they were negotiating this deal, and Trump just walked away. They then had a final meeting on the border between North and South Korea. It was a photo op, but nothing more than that. I mean, to add insult to injury, I guess, after the meeting in Singapore, Trump called, and you might find this familiar to how he talks about Ukraine and so on. Trump called the United States joint military exercises with South Korea, which had been going on for decades, quote, war games, very provocative. In other words, he was mouthing, not Putin's, Kim Jong-un's exact terminology. And he announced they were canceled. Didn't ask his generals, didn't tell the Koreans, just announced he was canceling. Constantly complained about keeping troops in South Korea, constantly complained about South Korea not paying enough. And of course, constantly signaling to the North Koreans, yeah, we kind of agree with you guys. We're with you. But never getting the North Koreans to give an inch. Not an inch. And by the time his first term was up, talks had petered out. Really nothing to show for it except that stack of letters from the bromance. Trump failed. The negotiations failed. Now, if you assume the goal of the negotiations was the elimination of the nuclear threat from North Korea, if you assume the goal of negotiations, maybe, if you're really ambitious, maybe something like, I don't know, bringing some kind of liberty, some kind of freedom to North Korea, maybe even reunification under South Korean banner, the banner of relative freedom. But no, nothing, zero, zilch. He gave the North Koreans a huge amount of legitimacy, sanctioned their plight, demoralized the South Koreans, and all at the same time got nada, nothing in return. I mean, I'm still shocked, by the way, still shocked by the fact that given just his behavior with North Korea, this guy was elected again. That should have been enough. What else happened during Trump's first term? Trump walked away from the Iran deal that had been negotiated by Obama, a move I supported, by the way, and then immediately started negotiating with Iran again. They spent 2 years negotiating for a new nuclear deal and got nowhere. Zero, nada, nothing. So, nothing with Iran. And of course, what is going on right now? Trump, on the one hand, is threatening Iran with annihilating, fire and brimstone and all that stuff. Right? He's gonna crush them if they, and he'll never let them develop a nuclear weapons. By the way, they haven't. Not on Obama, not on Biden. They haven't yet. But at the same time, it's clear that Trump is not allowing the Israelis to attack Iran. and has sent Witkoff to negotiate with the Iranians. Now, the Americans claim the negotiations are face-to-face, U.S. versus Iran. Iran claims, no, we're not negotiating directly with the United States. We don't recognize the United States. We don't want to negotiate directly with them. We're doing it through an intermediary. It turns out the Iranians are right and the Americans are lying. There was a brief meeting between Witkoff and the Iranian foreign minister, but the rest of the negotiations, as far as I can tell, were done with the Omani, from Oman, intermediaries. Different rooms. All parties say the negotiations were good. Cool. There might be a deal with Iran. But I can guarantee you one thing. It'll be a lousy deal. If what you care about is Iran never developing nuclear weapons, if what you care about is, in a sense, eliminating the Iranian threat on Israel and other American interests in the Middle East, if what you care about are American interests, there will not be a good deal. It might be a deal, but it won't be a good deal. Now, it doesn't matter because Trump will be able to say, I got a deal. Just like with the trade, I got a deal. And all his acolytes will say, see, Trump got a deal. And it's the best deal ever. No human being has ever done a better deal than this one. And if you read the deal, I'm making a prediction. I know my predictions are kind of spotty. I'm making a prediction. The deal's going to suck. The deal's going to be weak. The deal will be in Iran's favor. The Iranians are much better negotiators than the Americans. Much better. And the Iranians can look around and they can see. They know how Trump negotiated first time. They know what happened in North Korea. They know what is happening in Ukraine. They can see what's happening in Gaza. Remember Gaza? Another one. They either release the hostages by 10 a.m. tomorrow, or I'm going to flatten Gaza. We're going to destroy Gaza. We're going to rain hell on the Gazans, on Hamas. We're going to destroy Hamas. And what happened? They didn't release all the hostages, and Trump didn't do anything. And indeed, if anything, he restrained Israel from doing something, forced Israel to sign a deal with Hamas, not particularly in Israel's favor. And all hell is still not being rained on Gaza. Now, Trump did come up with this idea of, we'll take over Gaza, it'll be America, I'll build a Riviera, it'll all be American, we'll take control, we'll ship all the Gazans to other countries, Saudi, what did he say, Egypt and Jordan. And then the Egyptian or Jordanian says, we're not taking them. And the Saudis say, Trump, really, stop this, this is silly. And Trump said, oh, okay, so we won't ship them anyway. And once in a while, he'll mention the idea of a Riviera, but it's gone. It's not part of the agenda. It's not the deal that he was going to cut. The promise he had made, gone, evaporated, disappeared. When Trump says, this is what's going to happen, it's actually meaningless. It means nothing. He doesn't know what he's saying. He doesn't know the implications. And he has no problem changing his mind for whatever reason he thinks it's worth changing his mind for any random whim. He changed it on tariffs. He changed it on Iran. He changed it on Gaza. He changed it on North Korea. You can go from Rocket Man to my best friend on a dime. It's still no deal. So, we will see. With regard to Gaza, he keeps telling Bibi, he keeps telling Netanyahu to stop the war. Oh, too much war. Need to stop the war. This is a war he promised in his campaign trail to stop. Oh, if we're talking about a war that he promised to end, well, of course, we've got the Ukraine war. And Trump's whole interesting relationship with Putin. I mean, Trump basically said during the campaign over and over and over again, not once, several times, that he would end the war between Ukraine and Russia, a war initiated by Russia, within 24 hours of taking office. And he said that was because, Putin respected him. They had a good relationship. Now, what is his track record with Putin? Well, I mean, he's excused Putin, justified for Putin over and over again over the years. He likes to say that Putin is very smart and very tough. When somebody accused Putin of killing journalists, Trump's response was, well, all governments kill people. No big deal. He's justified and covered for Putin constantly. Before he became president the first time, he claimed he'd met Putin in the past. Then he claimed he'd never met Putin. Again, you never know with Trump when he says something, whether it has any relationship to facts or not. No idea. Anyway, in July 2017, Trump and Putin had their first meeting in Hamburg in Germany during a G20 meeting. They discussed a wide array of topics: Ukraine, Syria, Russia's interference in the 2016 elections. Remember, this is after Ukraine took Crimea and started basically a war on the eastern front of Ukraine in Donetsk and Luhansk. And that was brought up in the meeting. Didn't stop Putin. Putin didn't retreat. Didn't slow down. They talked about Syria. Putin didn't withdraw his troops from Syria. He became the dominant player in Syria. And of course, Putin continued to deny any Russian interference in the 2016 election and would do so over and over and over again. They met again several times. Maybe the most famous one was in Helsinki, Finland, where Putin really looked like he dominated Trump, body language-wise. The respect Trump showed Putin. I mean, it really looked like Trump was being dominated by Putin. And so, in November 2018, they were supposed to have a meeting, and then Trump canceled it because, Russia had seized 3 Ukrainian naval vessels. So again, Ukraine war on very low flame is constantly going on during Trump's first administration. He claims the war would have never started if I were president in 2022. We don't know that because it was still going on, and he didn't do anything to slow down or to force Putin to retreat or to challenge Putin's claim to Crimea or to stop him from seizing 3 boats, other than he didn't meet with him once, November 18. But by June 19, he was already meeting with him, and they were joking around and having a good time. Of course, as the war in 2022 is breaking out, Trump calls Putin a genius and very savvy for how he has managed those initial phase of the war when it looks like Putin's going to win in a few weeks in Ukraine. Trump is very admiring. All negotiating tactics, I am sure, so that he can end the war in 24 hours. Now, in 2025, January, after he's inaugurated, Trump criticizes Putin because Putin doesn't seem to agree to a deal within 24 hours of inauguration. Trump does not achieve his goal. So Trump says about Putin, I think he's destroying Russia by not making a deal. And He talks about the fact that Putin can't be thrilled. He's not doing so well. I mean, he's grinding it out. It's not making him look good. I think he would do well off to end that war. That didn't really do anything. So then in February 12th, Trump and Putin have their first phone call. A lengthy and highly productive conversation, according to Trump. And of course, that was the pivot. Whatever Putin said to Trump caused Trump now to completely shift. Starting after that conversation, Trump starts blaming Ukraine for the Russia-Ukraine war. Suggests Ukraine is responsible for Russia's invasion. And it should have never started, and we can have a deal and make a deal. And, we've talked about all the rest of it. And then, of course, Trump people go out there and say, yeah, we're going to negotiate. We're going to negotiate with Russia on behalf of Ukraine, without asking Ukraine, but on behalf of Ukraine. And then they say, but we know in advance, we're telling you, no NATO membership for Ukraine, right? Okay. Putin gets one. Ukraine should not expect to get its land back. Ooh. Putin gets a second demand. This is cool. And 3, we really should have elections in Ukraine. Third Putin demand. No negotiations have started yet. March 2025, Trump and Putin have another discussion. Very good and productive. Very good and productive, Trump tells us. They agree on a ceasefire on energy and infrastructure. Within a day, Russia breaks the ceasefire. Never happens. Later in March, Putin sends a portrait to Trump, of Trump, as a gift to Trump. Again, he knows to suck up to Trump. Just suck up to him. Pretend that you're playing along. We're still waiting for the 24-hour deal for ceasefire, any kind of ceasefire. It's clear now. It looks like Witkoff just met with Putin, and it looks like the United States is basically, its policy right now is, yeah, Putin can have all 4 provinces, I guess, of Ukraine that Putin wants. He can have them. That's the starting off position. I mean, this is a unbelievable joke, but it's a joke with a lot of blood. This is the negotiation? Trump is negotiating? Trump is being railroaded by Putin. Has been for years. Trump has just gotten nothing from Putin. Zero, zilch, nothing. What has Putin gotten from Trump? No NATO membership for Ukraine. Recognition of Russia's claim to the lands that they've conquered. And skepticism from the American government regarding the legitimacy of Zelensky. In other words, everything Putin wanted. He's a great negotiator? He's a great negotiator? For what? All right, I mean, we could go on and on. In his first term, Trump signed a trade deal with South Korea. Marginal. But again, the current tariffs regime is a violation of that deal, so it's meaningless. Why would anybody sign a deal with the United States when Trump gets up and can change his mind at any given point in time? During the first term, Trump was supposedly very excited to negotiate a trade deal with the United Kingdom. It was after Brexit. Boris Johnson. There was a lot of excitement. They believed there would be a deal, imminent, passed. Never happened. Never got a deal signed. Never got a deal signed. Now, since January, a lot of talk at the UK. Oh, we're going to get a deal done. And when Starmer came to the White House, Trump told him, yeah, we'll get a trade deal done. No sign of a trade deal getting done. What else do we want to talk about quickly here? Yeah, I want to talk about two things. One is China. Let's do China, and then we can talk about a domestic deal-making issue, and we can talk about why. Why is Trump a bad deal maker? Why is it impossible for Trump to be a good deal maker? So remember, Trump views, or the Trump administration views, China as the number one most important national security and foreign policy issue. Number one, most important thing they could do. They need to find a way to prevent Russia becoming the hegemon, the dominant power in Asia, and restrain its ability to supersede the United States in terms of global influence. And of course, China runs an enormous trade deficit, or we run an enormous trade deficit with China. And that's no good, according to Trump. So Trump says over and over again, he is going to reduce the trade deficit with China. So in April 2017, during a visit to Beijing, China and President Xi agreed to a 100-day plan for trade talks. They're going to have a deal. They're going to make a deal. Trump's the deal maker. With the idea that the talks, will be focused on reducing U.S. trade deficit with China. That's April 2017. By July, they walk away. The deal has failed. No deal is made. China, I meant, yes. August 2017. Trump launches an investigation into alleged Chinese theft of U.S. intellectual property. And in response to the investigation, nothing really happens. In January 2018, U.S. announces 30% tariffs on imported solar panels, which come mostly from China. Why? I guess the solar panel manufacturers in the United States put some pressure on Trump. Okay, 30% tariffs on solar panels. April 2018, Beijing strikes back with tariffs on U.S. imports worth about $3 billion, including 15% duties on products including fruit, nuts, wine, steel pipes, and 25% tax on pork, recycled aluminum, and 6 other types of goods. A day later, April 2018, the United States ups the ante by slapping a 25% tax on Chinese goods for aerospace, machinery, medical industries worth about $50 billion. China retaliates with 25% duties on aircraft, automobiles, soybeans, chemicals, among other imports worth about another $50 billion. Does this sound familiar? But don't worry, we're going to have a deal, right? Well, the two countries imposed at least 3 more rounds of tit-for-tat tariffs that cover $250 billion worth of Chinese goods and more than $110 billion worth of U.S. goods. In December 2018 and through the middle of 2019, okay, now we're serious about a deal because this is really hurting, right? So they iron out a trade deal. And the trade deal basically said, we're not going to raise tariffs anymore. No new tariffs. This is it. No new tariffs. Big achievement. And by May of 2019, the deal falls apart. And Trump goes ahead and raises tariffs 10 to 25% on $200 billion worth of Chinese goods. Same month, Washington bans Chinese technology company Huawei from buying parts and components in the United States. And then in June, Trump and Xi get on the phone to make a deal. And they're gonna restart the trade talks. Never happens. Nothing ever happens. Now, finally, in January 2020, they sign a phase 1 trade deal. It's supposed to be multi-phases, but this is phase 1. Through which China commits to buying an additional $200 billion of U.S. goods and services over the next 2 years. Guess how much of that $200 billion of U.S. goods China actually buys? 0. Didn't happen. Never happened. So even when there's a deal signed, nothing happens. Good, nothing, supposedly, in terms of Trump's aims, nothing happens. So, yeah, meaningless. Of course, during the campaign, Trump again goes, we're going to go after Chinese. Biden, by the way, doesn't do away with any of the Chinese tariffs. Indeed, he actually raises some tariffs on batteries and other things. He also puts restrictions on selling stuff, primarily semiconductors, to the Chinese. So Biden actually doubles up on what Trump started. But none of this leads to a deal. Now, of course, as of February 2025, Trump puts in new 10% tariffs on Chinese imports to the United States. China retaliates the same day by announcing a flurry of countermeasures. Then on March 4th, an additional 10% of Chinese goods will go into effect. These were the fentanyl tariffs. And China responds with additional tariffs up to 15% on imports of key U.S. farm products. April 3rd, Liberation Day, Trump announces additional 34% tariffs on all Chinese imports, along tariffs on goods from countries around the world, right? April 4th, China announces another retaliatory move, including more export controls on rare earth materials, and files a lawsuit with the World Trade Organization. It also suspends imports of certain agricultural products to the United States and starts an anti-monopoly probe, which is just a way to put pressure on American companies into DuPont. Right? Since then, Trump has raised tariffs on Chinese goods to 145%. China's raised tariffs on American imports to 125%. In the meantime, on Friday, Trump eliminated tariffs on iPhones and other computers and phones in order to appease Apple and other electronics manufacturers. And a deal with China? It turns out if you read, Trump keeps saying, Xi, call me anytime, available to talk. And like the Chinese are going, Xi's not going to call you. What's up? Xi's not going to court you. He's not the brutal dictator of North Korea and going to play your bromance game. Xi will call you once our underlings have negotiated at least some form of a deal, but he's not going to call you to grovel. Who the hell are you, Donald Trump? Out of the deal. Out of the deal. So now we have this crazy business with Chinese tariffs. Note the number of small to medium-sized businesses that are going to struggle, maybe even go out of business. Well, not maybe even. A lot of them will go out of business. Yeah. Trump is a terrible negotiator. He cuts no deals. No deals. Now, let's think about it a second. Why is that? I mean, he wants to do deals. He's open to negotiating with everybody. Why can't he actually get a deal? Well, because he doesn't, well, I mean, there are a number of issues. Primarily, I'd say he doesn't know what he wants. If you're going to be a good negotiator, you have to know going in what you clearly believe in, what you clearly want, and what you're clearly going to are willing to give up. A deal. Now, he's going up against people who are evil. Putin, Buddha dictator of North Korea. They know exactly what they want. And they will try to get away with not giving up anything. And anything America gives up to them, emboldens them, bolsters them, strengthens them. Even if it's just a meeting, that is an incredible win for them. So they don't need a lot in order to win. And indeed, the United States, what's the point of the deal? Like, what's the point of a deal with North Korea? What does America have to gain from a deal with North Korea? Well, indeed, at the end of the day, nothing. And while Trump doesn't know that, he can't get his mind around other than meeting these people and getting the media attention and saying he's all for deals, what am I getting out of this? How can I explain this to American people? And therefore, every time they actually get into the negotiating phase, it falls apart because he has no idea what he wants. He has no idea what he's willing to give up. And he has no idea that basically the very act of agreeing to deal with them is he's sold out already. So he's negotiating with Putin over Ukraine. But Putin's a thug. And Putin knows exactly what he wants. He wants the territories conquered plus more. He wants Ukraine never to be part of NATO. He wants no peacekeeping troops in Ukraine. And he wants Zelensky gone. And Trump's like, I just want a deal. I just want a deal. You want those things? Fine. I don't care. Because he doesn't care. He has no principles. That's the word. He has no principles by which to guide the negotiations. Like, what does Trump want from trade? What does Trump want from trade? More revenue from tariffs? Okay. Fewer imports. But wait, if you have fewer imports, revenue will come down. So that doesn't work. He wants to deindustrialize the United States. Well, even if that was possible, more industrialization of the United States, fewer revenues. What does he want? He can't hold an abstract principle of, he certainly doesn't want free trade. He doesn't believe in free trade. He doesn't like free trade. He does not want zero tariffs. He's never believed in zero tariffs. He's never advocated for zero tariffs, even reciprocal zero tariffs. And when Singapore and Israel now said, we have zero tariffs with you, didn't change his mind. They still got 10%. So he has no principles. He has no vision for what he actually wants. Make America great again is a meaningless concept. It means nothing. He wants somehow to reindustrialize America. How? What does that mean? How do you do it? Can you make any money at it? Does the standard of living of Americans go up or down? It goes down significantly. If you reindustrialize America, standard of living plummets. Everything becomes more expensive. And let me tell you, jobs in industry are a lot lower paying than service jobs. And the service jobs are easier too, but more productive. Trump is a whim-driven thug. Whim-driven thugs don't know how to negotiate. They can pull a gun, like Trump has tried to do with Canada, tried to do with a little bit with Mexico, tried to do with Panama. They can pull a gun and they can say, oh, Greenland, we're going to take you over. We're really going to punish you. But he can't negotiate because what does he want? And what can he put up? And what's the goal? And the goals are inconsistent. They're contradictory. They're impossible. They're imaginary. They're fantasy. Like reindustrialization is fantasy. Nothing but fantasy. It's one big, unbelievable lie to the American people. And if you have a goal that is a fantasy, you can't achieve it. Oh, by the way, the other point I want to make about negotiations. Here's one he hasn't negotiated either. The one entity he doesn't negotiate with, though he needs to, is Congress. Congress doesn't negotiate with Congress. Like, he wants budget cuts, he says. But he doesn't really. And he doesn't really want any specific budget cuts. And he doesn't want you to touch Social Security and Medicare, but he'd like, spending to come down, he says. And Elon Musk says. But he doesn't want anything really to happen, and he doesn't want to piss off anybody, really. So Has he really ever sat down with Congress and negotiated? Remember Obamacare? He couldn't even get rid of Obamacare because he refused to really put pressure, really negotiate, come up with an alternative, offer solutions to problems. It's, people who supported Obamacare raised. Like, what do we do with pre-existing conditions? Nothing. Because he doesn't know anything. So he's ignorant. He's not smart. He has no principles. And he doesn't really know what he wants. What he wants are a bunch of floating abstractions that contradict each other, that don't actually add up to anything. Again, I want more revenue from tariffs, like McKinley, and I want reindustrialization. Those are contradictory. I want fewer imports, but I want more revenue. Contradictory? It doesn't, like, logic is not a, contradictions don't bother him. And the negotiators get bogged down because what are we doing? Where are we going? To negotiate well, you need to have clear goals. First of all, you don't negotiate with evil, but you need to have clear goals. And you have to know what you want to achieve. That's the clear goals. And you have to know what you're willing to give up and what you're going to demand, clearly. And you have to be willing, you have to be willing to walk away. You have to be willing to get tough. But you have to clearly know what you want, and he doesn't. He has no clue. No clue for those reasons. He's not very smart. He doesn't know anything. He's ignorant. And he has no principles. And if you add those three up, that is the characteristics of the worst negotiator ever, as far as I can tell. All right, that is my case. I presented my case. I'm curious if anybody can find me an example of a deal that Donald Trump cut, a significant one, not just a marginal slight improvement, but a deal Donald Trump cut that was good for America and lasted. The floor is yours. All my critics, all the people who think you've got Trump derangement syndrome. Facts, people. Bring them on. Bring them on. Or you can just admit, I've been right all along about Trump, on everything I've said about Trump, on almost every particular concrete. It's a little scary. I even predicted he would renege on the electronic stuff. All right. Let me see. So, remind you, hostages from Gaza have not been released. Russia-Ukraine is still going on. Trade war is still going on. And by the way, he does not have Greenland. All right. That is it. So we will now. Yes, I did predict the January 6th insurrection. I'm pretty good at this. I surprised myself, I have to say. I surprised myself. Let's see, where are we? Yeah, we got time for super chats. Lots and lots and lots of super chats. So bring them on. We are doing really well. We're well into second hour numbers. Even though we just finished our first hour, so but we still need to keep going. Got about $110 remaining for the second hour to cover the second hour. Don't forget to support the show. This is a viewer-supported show. Can't exist without your support. You can go to Patreon, become a monthly supporter. That is great. $2, $500, $1,000 a month, whatever you want, at whatever rate you want. It all adds up. So please consider doing that. Patreon.com, Yaron Brook Show. You can also do it on PayPal. Either of those, you can come here and do a sticker. We've got 184 people watching. Just do a sticker for a few dollars, like Mary Eileen just did, a couple of dollars, and it makes a big difference. It adds up. We're looking for another $361. Well, $5 less because Greg just did a $5. Keep going. Keep going. And yeah, thank you. You guys keep on. And again, I'm looking for deals that Trump has struck that are good in politics as president, that are good, that have lasted, that are pro-American. Let me just say this about deals. An American president should only cut a deal with a foreign country if the deal enhances the freedom, the liberty of Americans. Right? The job of an American president is the preservation and securing the rights of Americans. So the only appropriate deal to cut with another country is a deal that increases the liberty and freedom of Americans. You don't need many deals when that is the context. And you never deal with brutal dictators because they have nothing to offer you. They're not going to secure the liberty and freedom of Americans. So, again, if you want to ask a question, I see a lot of you on the chat. You're going back and forth on the chat. If you want to ask me a question, then please go to the super chat. There's a $sign at the bottom of your screen. And press the $sign, and using that, you can ask me a question for $2. I mean, I've got $2 questions here, and I promise to answer all the super chat questions, all of them. No matter what you ask, I will answer. But I really do only answer questions that are super chat questions. I can't keep track of all the chat. All right. Michael says, a whim-driven leader who is driving the economy like a roller coaster is going to really hinder business investment due to uncertainty. The trust in America as a thriving economy has dwindled, and I wonder if it can be rekindled, and if so, how. It can certainly be rekindled, but I don't think Trump can do it. That is, I'm not sure Trump has the ability to do it or the credibility to do it. I think that foreigners. I was just looking at numbers today about tourism. Tourism in March has plummeted. It was down like, I don't know, some astronomical number relative to March of last year. And that's because nobody wants to come to America because they feel that America is attacking them. They feel as America is attacking their interests. They feel like America is attacking the freedom and liberty of their countries. If you're European, why would you come to America? When all you hear is how horrible Europeans are, and all you hear is the willingness of America to stab Ukraine in the back and support the enemy of the Europeans, Putin. So, same with Asians. If you're Chinese, are you coming to America to visit? So tourism is way down. Now, tourism is just one indicator. The more interesting and important indicator is people overseas don't want to hold dollars. They don't want to hold U.S. debt. They don't want to invest in America, at least for now. We'll see if that changes. Means that we're drawing money from the U.S. economy, which is devastating for the U.S. economy, potentially. So the market's down, bonds are down, the dollar's down, in spite of the fact that usually when bonds are down, the dollar's up. And when bonds are down, bonds are down, stock market's down, yep. So all of that. And yet, Trump's whim-driven economy is not a good economy. It's hugely uncertain. It drives businessmen crazy. It hinders investment. Nobody wants to think about the long term because they can't, because Trump eviscerates the long term. And the consequence of that are a struggling U.S. economy. Now, some of that will be mitigated by deregulation that Trump is promising. Needs to happen sooner rather than later. But deregulation without hurting the global economy would be better than deregulation with hurting the global economy. So deregulate. See, the whole of economics, the whole of the field of economics is dominated by collectivism. So we talk about our companies versus their companies. But there is no our companies and their companies. And the job of the American government is not to protect our companies and not to make our companies competitive and not to improve the status of our companies. The job of the U.S. government is to protect the individual rights of its citizens. And if our companies are less competitive, then they should go out of business. And if we won't reduce the regulations and controls that make them uncompetitive, then we should suffer the consequences. Trade barriers are not a solution. They're just a doubling up on evil. The evil of regulation and double up on it with the evil of tariffs. You want to make American business competitive, deregulate on scale. On scale. And if you're Trump and you want to really revolutionize the American economy and make it as significantly more robust than it is, it's a pretty robust economy relative to any country in the world. We're doing better than anybody. And generally, everybody in America is doing better than they have in the past. All the lies about the economy, the U.S. economy not doing well, is all BS. It's not doing anywhere near as well as it could. But it's doing quite well. I've shown you graphs. I've shown you the evidence. But if Trump really cared about the U.S. economy, he'd have two priorities and only two priorities, and he would spend an entire presidency and all the political capital and all of his time and all of his so-called negotiating skill on these two priorities. One, deregulate. Two, cut government spending. Deregulate, cut government spending. Deregulate, cut government spending. That's it. Just do those two. Nothing else. Forget about wars. Forget about all this other stuff. Forget about tariffs. Forget about trade. Cut government spending and deregulate, and this economy would go through the roof. Through the roof. But that's not what interests him. It's not what interests him. And by the way, this what really he wants is not the deal. What really he wants is not the deal. What Trump really wants is the attention. What Trump really wants is the fawning over him by foreign leaders. The fact that they all have to come and grovel with the hope of a deal. The fawning of dictators, like the brutal dictator of North Korea, like Xi, like Putin, like the Iranians. Oh, I even forgot. You know what? Oh, I forgot this. God, I can't believe I forgot it. Trump did have one successful deal. He actually signed a peace deal. Anybody remember who he signed a peace deal with? What was the one peace deal Trump signed in his first term? It was with the Taliban. Yeah, the Taliban, those guys, the bad guys. He signed a peace deal with them. And, Biden amateuristically tried to implement that deal by evacuating Americans and screwed it completely up. But that was the deal. And it's a disaster. It's a horrible deal. It's a deal that grants the Taliban a reward for fighting America for 20 years. That's the one deal he signed, the peace deal. And he even wanted to invite the Taliban to the Camp David to sign the deal. And luckily, some of his aides talked him out of it. But he wanted it. That's how pathetic he is. He's willing to cut a deal with anybody. And if whether it enhances American interests or not, a deal with the Taliban does not enhance American interests. All right, Andrew. The peace at all cost fools will learn that the cost of such peace is the enlargement of evil and a destabilized world that threatens violence against evil's appeasers. Do you find such amoral pacifism enormously naive or outright cowardly? Oh, it's outright cowardly and evil. This is not naive. This is not naivete, particularly not by intellectuals. This is cowardice and evil, evasion on a grand scale, evasion where the lives of people are at stake. This isn't even, I would consider Chamberlain more, who I think also evaded and was a coward. But he was less because we could learn from that example. As compared to these appeasers now, the people appease Putin. You know, this is evil and cowardly, and it's not amoral pacifism. That's way too generous. I don't know, Andrew. It's immoral pacifism. And all forms of pacifism, qua pacifism, are immoral. The equating, which pacifism does, of the good guys with the bad guys is not amoral, but immoral. Immoral. These guys are bad people. Stay away from them. Only damage can be done from them. All right, Ali says, I was really disappointed yesterday how he backed off, even though I don't agree on tariffs, I assume. But he showed weakness. What a loser. 6D chess move. Yes, but I predicted it, so I was not disappointed or surprised. Certainly not disappointed. Not surprised. He is a loser. Unbelievable loser. He's weak, but he's also corrupt. So a lot of it was a consequence of the tech bros coming to him and saying, hey, wait a minute. We paid you $5 million to have dinner with you. Get rid of these tariffs. And look, the CEO of Apple has been cultivating Trump for 8 years. And there's a reason. It was for this, to get Apple the exclusion that it needed. And cultivating means, to some extent at least, money, paying money. This is not hidden. Each one of these businesses paid $1 to $5 million for the so-called inauguration fund, and then they paid $1 to $5 million to have lunch or dinner with Donald Trump. This is pure, simple, unadulterated corruption at the highest level of American government. And what's shocking about it, it's completely out in the open. And does anybody care? No. Certainly not the people who love Donald Trump. Ice pick. Smoot-Hawley gets mentioned a lot lately. What is the best account on what happened during the Great Depression, in your opinion? I think the best account is probably George Selgin's just published book on the Great Depression, which I encourage. Selgin, Selgin. There are other accounts. God, what's her name? There's a book called The Forgotten Man, which is very good on the Great Depression. There's also economists' analysis like Mises. But I'd say Selgin's account, I think, is quite good. And he really makes an effort of being objective and recognizing FDR's kind of motivations and not attributing automatic evil or incompetence to him, and really trying to figure out what worked, what didn't work, why it didn't work, what was going on. So I think that it's a recent book. It just came out. I've got it, and I can't sure I've got it on my Kindle, I think. I think I downloaded a Kindle version of it. So I can't remember the name, but it's, if you look George Selgin, and on Amazon, yeah, I can do that. Let's do Selgin. It's called False Dawn, The New Deal and the Promise of Recovery, 1933 to 1947. So I don't know how much of it covers with Smoot-Hawley, but probably in setting it up, I think he does cover it. Yep. So I'm sure there are others. Forgotten Man. Yeah, The Forgotten Man by Amity Shlaes. Amity Shlaes, Shlas. The Forgotten Man, A New History of the Great Depression is very good. So I think between those two, you'll get a really, really good idea about what happened in the Great Depression, what caused what. All right, Brian, thank you for your insight during these historical crazy times you're on. As a financial planner, this tariff announcement by Trump has really increased my on-the-job stress by a lot, as you can imagine. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And it's really hard to tell what's going to happen because the reality is we don't know how the rest of the world is going to behave. This, again, what I've talked about a number of times last week, this the dollar going down and interest rates going up is scary. If that continues, that is scary. And that could have major ramifications for the dollar, for the value, for standard of living. It's dangerous times. I don't expect complete collapse. But another thing is, if there was a small collapse, Trump is so incompetent, he would make it a lot worse. I mean, this is what happens when you elect a moron to be president. I mean, it makes it very difficult. JB, plan, first destroy all trust between allies, then get our allies turned enemies to agree to a deal that is the greatest, biggest, bestest deal ever. Make America great again. Don't forget that, what really happens is that our allies then turn to our enemies and cut deals with them. We're already seeing Japan and South Korea cozy up to China because they figure they can't trust America. They better find a way to cut a deal with China. Michael, you have 40,000 subscribers. I don't see why we can't get 5,000 objectivists organized for a major protest if Trump explicitly defies the Supreme Court. I don't need to sound pessimistic, but I don't think you can. I've never seen 5,000. I've never seen more than 500, 600 objectivists in one place. And objectivists are busy, and I would find it hard to believe that you would get that. And it's rare that one of my shows is watched, the same show, watched by 5,000 different people. That's pretty rare. Happens, but it's pretty rare. So 40,000 subscribers doesn't mean 40,000 people listening to the show. If every one of my shows had 40,000 views, then I would be completely with you. Completely with you. But that's not the case yet. Maybe one day. Andrew, in an interview, Tucker asked Steven Witkoff what he thought of Putin. This is Witkoff. I liked him, and he got personal. He took out a portrait of Trump done by a great Russian artist as a gift for the president. Andrew says, it's like out of fiction. Yeah, it really is. I mean, Steven Witkoff strikes me as a mini Trump. He's got the same kind of insane, irrational, whim-driven appreciation, even admiration for dictators. And he just strikes me as a nothing, no principles, no ideas. He's a perfect emissary for Trump. Believes in nothing, will say anything, and he's a schmoozer. So if you schmooze with him, he'll like you. Like if you're personal with him, he'll like you. If you give him a gift, he'll like you. If you give him a gift of a portrait of somebody he admires, he'll like you even more. I have zero negative respect for Witkoff. I think he's awful, horrible. Also, anyway, let's see. Melanie, €50. Thank you, Melanie, for a €50 sticker. Really, really appreciate that. You guys can also do stickers. Come on over, 185, and we got 370 on Twitter. Come over to YouTube and do a sticker. Support the show. Eyal, thank you for the sticker. Let's see, who else did we have? We had Mary Aline did a sticker, and we got, whoops, we didn't get there. We got Antonio with a sticker, and Jonathan asked a question. Yeah, so we got a bunch of stickers. So thank you. We could do a lot more stickers. That would get us to our $750 goal easily with the right stickers from you guys. So just come on over, just click that dollar button below you, and just do something to support trade. Trade, remember trade? Win-win. It's what Trump doesn't get. It's what Trump doesn't understand, but I think you guys do understand it. Trade is win-win. We're trading. I'm delivering. Now it's your turn. All right, Mike, do you think Trump possibly sending us into recession will prevent his energy policy from achieving benefits? I mean, it'll achieve some benefits, there's no question. And the main thing he is going to do is get rid of a lot of the environmental regulation. That will, on a bunch of local projects and a bunch of civil engineering projects, will make a difference. But it's true that if we go into recession, a lot of the infrastructure that would be built won't be built because there won't be money. A lot of the business activity that would benefit drilling, that would benefit from the deregulation, might not happen. If oil prices get cheap enough, a lot of rigs might stop pumping rather than drilling more, because the price of natural gas and oil will be too cheap to justify the drilling. So it is quite possible that a recession will make whatever good Trump does in terms of deregulation less impactful. A recession is bad all around. No question. Evan, Trump's only good deal, USMCA, is good for U.S. interests and maybe could be used to challenge Trump's own arbitrary tariffs in court. Yeah, but he never reneged on it, right? So it didn't last. It's a deal he signed and then reneged on it. I don't think it's particularly good. This is NAFTA 2.0. It was just a tweaking of NAFTA. What you really wanted was zero tariffs, and this kind of has all kinds of protections for different industries in it, like the original NAFTA. So a proper USMCA would have been great, but he reneged on it, and it wasn't that great to begin with. It was just a tweaking instead of a radical reimagining it as a true free trade deal. Thought Criminal, thank you for the sticker. We really appreciate it. Chipping away here at our goals. This is good. Andrew, Trump used to negotiate lower premium rates for his business insurance by publicly maligning the insurance company until it bended to avoid bad press. I guess it succeeded, but was lousy, illegitimate behavior, not negotiation. Yeah, I mean, it's the same as he would exaggerate the value of his real estate property in order to get more favorable loans on that real estate. So he has used the tactics of lying and deceiving and using press and PR and things like that in order to get his way. And in that sense, he is a lousy, horrible, despicable, dishonest negotiator. Majis. Hi, Yaron. Regarding the claim that tariffs are effective in protecting young industries if they are reduced as the market matures, Korea, Taiwan, Japan, what's your response based on these examples in economic theory? I mean, the economic theory and the studies that I've seen suggest that it is just not true. That is, it suggests that if those countries that embraced free trade and a domestic market that was far less regulated and centrally planned, they would have done better. They would have got richer. They would have gotten richer faster and healthier. Not only did Korea, Taiwan, Japan, particularly Korea, Japan, I know less about Taiwan, but Korea, Japan engage in kind of centrally planned, favored industries, favored corporations, banks, heavily regulated by the government, that then are friendly to the businesses and give them loans and good terms. And then also had tariffs that then are reduced over time. if all of that, if you got rid of all of that, Japan and Korea would be richer. I think the one area where, I can't cite the research right now on that, but Phil Magnus, who is on Twitter and is a good economist, he's at the Independent Institute today in California. But Phil Magnus has an article that shows that is true for America in the 19th century. The McKinley, exactly these McKinley tariffs that Trump keeps talking about and how wonderful they were. He shows that the tariffs during the 19th century hurt American production. And indeed, the most successful industries in the United States during that period were those industries that were not affected by the tariffs, that were not protected by the tariffs. And without tariffs, he projected the United States would have grown significantly faster than it already did. It was already growing fast. It would have been even faster. So when economists really look at it properly, freedom works. Freedom works. Free markets actually do work. Now, if you just look very narrowly, it superficially looked like it worked, right? Korea, Taiwan, Japan had tariffs. They had central planning. They had industrial policy. And they got rich. And some of those companies that were favored became the big companies. Hyundai and Samsung. So it looks like the central planning and the tariffs caused the success. But correlation is not causation. And when you actually dig deeper, no, they actually slowed down. They hampered. Korean, Taiwanese, and Japanese markets would be a lot healthier and richer if they had not gone that route. Aunt Sam, thank you for the sticker. See, $1.99. It helps. It's great. Keep on bringing them. All right. Oh, I wanted to tell you this. I don't know if I told you. So the Peterson Academy, remember the Peterson Academy, has hired me now to do 3 additional courses. So my finance course will be coming out in May. And after that, I'll be doing 3 additional courses. And here are the courses, just so you know, because it's relevant to what we're talking about. One of the courses is going to be on the history, economics, and morality of trade. So it's going to be titled Globalization. It's going to be a defense of globalization. And I'm going to get into all these questions. We'll get into what happened in South Korea, and we'll get into what happened in the U.S. in the 19th century, what happened in Japan. We'll get into all that in detail during this course. So I will study up. I'll be ready. So I'll have all your answers with citations available once that course is done. I also have a link that if you want to sign up for the Peterson Academy, among other things, or primarily to listen to my courses, ultimately, including the capitalism course that is available now and the finance course that is going to be available soon. You can use the link that I'm going to put in the chat. And if you use that link, then I get a little bit of the, so I get a revenue share. So a little bit goes to me. So that would be great if you can do. The other 2 courses are also great. So the other 2 courses, one is going to be on the history, theory, morality of money. 8 hours on money. That'd be fun. And there's Siri talking out of space. And then the final one is going to be a course, which I've done in the past. I did a 3-hour version. This will be an 8-hour version on the business corporation, on the corporate entity. So to have corporate finance, it'll have the history of corporation, but this will be, instead of 3 hours, it'll be 8 hours. So it'll cover a lot of material there. The history of corporations, starting from the original corporations that were set up by the British Crown, all the way to the modern times, shareholder wealth maximization versus stakeholders, all of that material will be covered in that. So those are the 3 courses. I'll be taping them this summer. They'll go up probably late this year, early next year. But that means I'll have 5 courses up in the Peterson Academy, which makes it worthwhile for you guys to sign up. I put the link in the chat. Use that link if you're going to sign up. And that way I get a bit of a revenue share. All right. Let's see. What did I want to do? Yeah, equal to reality. Show idea. An interview with Tal Tsfany with his new book. I'm having a blast with it, and it's good. It's great for those newer to Objectivism. Yeah, we're going to have Tal on, I think, in May. So, yeah, he'll definitely be on soon. Frank, didn't get a scholarship to Ocon. Can you help me? Unfortunately, I cannot. I have no pull, no insight. All I can do is encourage you to apply, but I can't secure the actual scholarship. You're going to have to talk to somebody at the Institute for that. Let's see. Iron Meerkat. Trump has a legacy. I don't even know how to call that. Trump, what a legendary dalbayob. And he says, P.S. Gaza must be destroyed. No idea what that means. Michael, for the first time in my life, I might have to start voting Democrat to save the country. Well, we're not there yet. Let's see what happens. Maybe in the midterms, it'd be a good idea. Jonathan Honing says, thank you for being a voice of reason and such an effective advocate for Ayn Rand. Thank you, Jonathan. Really, really appreciate it. Particularly coming from you, such a powerful voice out there in the culture for capitalism. Okay, RDF, thank you for the sticker. Mary Aline, thank you for the sticker. Mary, thank you for the sticker. And Molten Splendor, I love that chain. I'll never get bored with that name. Molten Splendor, $50. Thank you, Molten Splendor. He says, a super chat contribution just because I think you are great. I want to thank you for all you do and say. I appreciate that. Thank you. Really, really appreciate it. This is great. Thank you, guys. All right, Michael. Trump has all these gimmicks, getting rid of shower pressure regulations, taxes on tips, getting rid of the penny, all distractions for the fascist takeover. No, I don't think so. I don't think he's that sophisticated. I keep telling you, I just don't think he actually knows what's up, what he's doing, where he's going. I don't think he wants to be a dictator, but he doesn't know how to do it. He doesn't know how to get there. He doesn't want to upset people. So I don't think you can attribute to him too much planning, too much deviousness. He's not devious. He's just not smart, unprincipled, whim-worshipping thug. But not even I don't know, is there such a thing as a clever thug? I don't know if there's such a thing. Probably not. Michael, again, Steve Bannon was just on Bill Maher advocating higher taxes on the rich. I can't believe these brutes have access to this kind of power. Now, Bannon is smart, sophisticated, scheming, long-term planning. Bannon's goal is ultimately authoritarianism in America. So Bannon and his ilk are the people to really be afraid of. And I'm not surprised. He's always wanted more higher taxes on the rich. He hates Ayn Rand. I've got a quote from him on Ayn Rand. He's read Ayn Rand. He knows Ayn Rand. He hates Ayn Rand. And he hates free markets. He hates freedom. Hates the founders. Michael, good for the Prime Minister of Singapore for publicly condemning Trump. Singapore probably survives solely from free trade. Free trade and lack of regulations. But Singapore, of course, can't produce everything that it consumes. It's a tiny little place. So it depends on trade. It depends on importing stuff. And it has to offer something in return. And basically what it's offering is freedom. Jonathan, cutting trade deals is the role of private companies. Government has no role. Yes. Thank you. Government has no role in cutting trade deals. Why is this paused? What happened? Sorry. Very frustrating. Okay. Trade is something individuals do. Companies do. Not governments. Governments shouldn't trade. And trade deals, as I've said over and over again, only thing the government should do is lower tariffs to zero, lower all barriers to trade to zero, and get out of the way. And let companies negotiate what they want, under what terms, over what period of time, what the other side wants in return. Government has no role in trade. Eric, thank you. John Bales, thank you. Appreciate the support, guys. Michael, I understand not being close to an objectivist society at this point in time, but you would think we would at least be moving in that direction. No, I that would be very optimistic. I wish that were the case, but I don't know what you would think is, and who would think, and under what circumstances. And yep, I was hoping that by the time I die, which is I think still quite a way in the future, we would be moving in that direction. And for all we know, the undercurrents are such that we are moving in that direction. It's hard to tell. It just doesn't have political manifestation. I don't think it will in my lifetime. Michael, did Ayn Rand and Milton Friedman have more respect in the culture in the 80s than they do today? Yeah, definitely. I mean, Milton Friedman was known in the culture. I don't think he's known in the culture today that much. He was very well known. He was a popular figure. He was on TV. He was all over the place. Ayn Rand was more known, I think, back then than she is today, in spite of all the people who've read the books. Again, she was on TV. She was a cultural figure. And so I think they were more known. I think Ayn Rand's ideas are better understood today. More people know her ideas. More people know her philosophy. But in terms of Ayn Rand as a figure, I think she got more respect back then. Andrew, how do you think Trump's negotiation tactics come across to Xi or Putin? Are they intimidated or do they see a mark? I think they are unintimidated, but they also, he's completely unpredictable. So I think they don't know what to do with him to a large extent. I think Putin has a better grasp, and he communicates more with Trump than Xi does. I think Putin sees him more of as a mark. Xi, I think, is just bewildered by him and just kind of probably throws his arms up and doesn't know what to do with him. But I don't think either of them are intimidated by him at all. I think they view him as weak, unprincipled, with no agenda, completely guided by his emotions, and easily manipulated. Erdogan, the same thing. Michael, Antifa is awfully quiet. They were burning down cities, Trump's first term. Are they being ordered to hold back and let Trump self-destruct? They only burned down cities during COVID. They did not burn down cities the first 3 years of Trump's. You cannot separate COVID from what happened with Black Lives Matter. COVID was a big part of that. I do not think that they're being told to hold back. I just don't think there's impetus. And again, I think people in mass going out to the streets and people accepting rioting that burns down streets like they did in Portland and other places, that was a phenomena of COVID. Now, we could have something similar to COVID that generates that, but it was a phenomena of COVID, and as much as a phenomena of Trump. Dawn, no good deals when everything is seen as zero sum. Yeah, or negative sum. Absolutely. You can't do a good deal if it's zero sum, if that's your perspective. Paul, is Trump shorting the stock market? No, I don't think so, but I do think some of his people probably bought the stock market when he was just before he announced doing away with the what is it, with the Liberation Day tariffs, the reciprocal portion of the tariffs. He let them know in advance. So I think people bought. Frank, on knockoff products, a downside to free market. Did a free market make Irish famine worse when Brits exported and sold food to the highest bidder? No, knockoff products are not a phenomena of the free market. They're phenomena of the lack of the rule of law. They're phenomena of a system outside of the United States primarily that has no respect for intellectual property and therefore allows the production of knockoffs without any risk. So it's the opposite. In free markets, you don't get knockoffs. And then did a free market make Irish famine worse? No, because again, there was no free market. The fact that Brits sold food to the highest bidder is not free markets. Where did they get their food from? Who did they steal it from? Were the Irish farmers free to not give their food to the British? Could the Irish farmers sell them direct? No, none of that. And there was no free market. So you can't blame the free market for things when it doesn't exist. Martin, opinion on Steve Witkoff and Iran talks. Well, I've said I think Steve Witkoff is a mini Trump. I think he's terrible, unprincipled, ignorant. I think he will cave to Iran. I think Trump really, really, really wants to deal with Iran because he doesn't want to go to war and he doesn't want to give Netanyahu a free hand. So there will be an Iran deal, I'm pretty sure. Will it be better than Obama's deal? Maybe a little bit better than Obama's deal, but not much. And the evil of that is that they'll undo the sanctions and Iran will start generating huge quantities of money from selling oil. And that money will not be used for good things. Mostly it'll be used to oppress their own people, which is sad. I mean, there's a real opportunity by going after the regime and the nuclear program to have regime change from within. And they'll blow this opportunity. I like numbers. Do objectivists generally make good negotiators? I don't know. If they have a practice and they are, they know the field in which they're negotiating, the area, then they should. I mean, they're principled and they understand incentives and they understand it's all win-win, and they should. But whether they do, I just don't have good examples. I'm sure there are phenomenal examples out there of good negotiating skills by objectivists. Greg Lewis says, you're calling Trump out and still broadcasting. Trump must be slipping. He hasn't quite got around to me, and he hasn't got around to YouTube. But who knows? Who knows when he will? All right, Frank, Trump's famous advice is don't be afraid to walk away from a deal. Is that good? Also, how about talking to Patrick Ben-David breaking out on YouTube? Yeah, I mean, it's definitely good advice. If you're negotiating about something, you have to be willing to walk away. Otherwise, what are you negotiating? You're just going to cave to whatever the other side wants. So yes, when you negotiate for a house, you negotiate for business transaction, you have to be willing to walk away under certain terms. I'd love to talk to Patrick Ben-David. He needs to invite me. He knows who I am. He needs to invite me. Ian Meerkat, how long till Trump appoints a horse Secretary of State and drone strikes the Atlantic Ocean? P.S. Gaza must be destroyed. Hasn't he already done that, in a sense? Peter, Mary Benz, roses are red. The ominous parallels are uncanny. The naked gun is fun. Bacon. All right, again, code. No idea what they're talking about. All code. Molten Splendor. I hope you aren't disappointed, but Molten Splendor is the literal description of my passion. Art glass. I'm not disappointed. It's still cool. Molten Splendor is, I don't know, something about it that's just positive image. I like it. Art glass, beautiful art glass. Splendor is great. Molten. It's Perfect. I like it. Andrew, last question, by the way. If you want to support the show, now's the time to kick in a sticker. We're $95 short of the ambitious goal that I set, but I am happy either way. Frank says you can contact Ben David. I have. He knows I want to be in a show. He has not invited me. Andrew says, follow up on my question about pacifism. You say it involves cowardice. How do you explain many libertarians are cowardly in that area while willing to be bold on economic issues? Well, because they're motivated, not primarily by cowardice. They're motivated by evasion and by irrationality and by hatred of the state, hatred of government, particularly good governments. Cowardice comes, cowardice might not apply in their case. Right? Cowardice, but in their case, it's primarily motivated by a hatred of the state and a hatred of good states and from massive evasion about the nature of the world and the nature of rights. That's the other thing they evade. They evade the nature of rights. Nevfell, thank you for the sticker. Jeffrey, I still need to send you the dates when I'm coming to New York for a reservation. I'll try to do that today. Please remind us of your take on positive rights. Look, the whole conception of positive versus negative rights is a bad way to think about it. All rights are positive. The positive rights in the sense that rights create the conditions under which you can pursue your values. That is their purpose. Their purpose is to create a world in which you can use your reason in pursuit of your values, ultimately in pursuit of your happiness. So in that sense, all rights are positive. But what is meant by positive rights is, in the literature out there, in the world out there, is you have a right to stuff, to somebody else's productive labor. You have a right to something somebody else produces. You have a right to food. You have a right to health care. Whereas what rights actually mean is you have the freedom to act to attain those things through trade. So you have a right to health care, sure. It means you have a right to negotiate with doctors to get the treatment that you both mutually agree upon. Nobody can stop you, should be able to stop you, they do, from going out there and picking a doctor and negotiating with them and being willing to pay him for treatment. That's what a right to healthcare means. It's a right to pursue action, to act on behalf of your values. But it's not a right to the thing itself, i.e. medical treatment, food. So hopefully that explains it. So rights are, people think of it as negative because the freedom from force, but that's not a negative, that's a positive, because freedom from force doesn't stand on its own. It's freedom from force for the purpose of pursuing your values, guided by your reason. So you cannot have a right to somebody else's stuff, somebody else's time, somebody else's effort, somebody else's values. What you have a right to is to pursue your values. Food, healthcare, whatever it happens to be, you have a right to pursue those things. And that pursuit can only be done with regard to other people in a voluntary fashion, interacting voluntarily with other people, peacefully with other people, respecting their rights to be free from force and coercion. Richard, new term, magical thinking. I like that, magical thinking. Trump can do anything and get another party to pay for it. If you don't understand him, he's playing multidimensional chess. Yes, this has been going on for 8 years. 8 years, and they have not learned. They have not learned. It's amazing to me. Just stunning. Just stunning. Robert, looking forward to you address the Mackinac Center at Northwood. See you all in Michigan soon. That's in 2 weeks. 2 weeks, something like that. Yeah, 2 weeks. We'll be in Northern Michigan, Northwood University, Mackinac Center. All of you are invited. I'm also addressing the Henry Ford Academy in Detroit. That's a high school. Jeffrey, thoughts on child labor laws? It's not the job of government to dictate, as long as the children are not being abused, that the children cannot work. It's incumbent on parents, I think, to send their kids to get an education. And you could argue that it's child abuse not to have a basic education, writing, reading, math. But beyond that, if a child works, as long as they're not being abused again and physically abused, as long as they're not being taken advantage of by an adult, then they have every right to work. Indeed, when we have child labor laws prohibiting child labor, they always come after the people in the economy have reached a certain level of wealth. So what happens is, when parents reach a certain level of income, they take their kids out of the factories and send them to school. And then politicians pass laws prohibiting child labor and then take credit for the fact that there are no children working anymore. But the children not working anymore happens before the law is passed. It happens because parents are now wealthy enough to be able to send their kids to school. No parent wants their kid to work if they can afford to feed them without them working. It's also true today that the child labor laws are become absurd, where kids can do things like deliver newspapers. They can work in their teen years while they're going to school. It just has become absurd, even on some farms. Remember that child labor has always existed. In subsistence farming, children worked on the farm. So there was no, it's not like capitalism created child labor. Child labor was always there. Always there. All right, guys. Thank you. Really, really appreciate the super chatters. Great questions, lots of questions. And thank you all for putting up the funds and making our goals. I really, really appreciate that. I will see you all tomorrow. In the evening tomorrow, we're talking to Christina Laporte, cardiologist, novel writer, suspense novel writer, thriller novel writer. We'll talk about the transition she made in her life. We'll talk about the novel she writes, the philosophy that guides her writing. But just, I'm intrigued by how many careers this woman has had, and how she manages to juggle it all, right? She's amazing. So that is tomorrow evening at, I think it's 7 p.m. East Coast time. 8 p.m. East Coast time tomorrow. All right. But there'll also be a show during the day, news roundup, I think. All right. See you guys. Have a great rest of your weekend. Great rest of your Sunday. Thanks for joining me on your Sunday. And don't get too down. We will survive. We will survive Donald Trump. One way or the other, we will survive him. The world of the end of the world is not here quite yet. Bye, everybody.